Once upon a time, in the city of Elle, there lived two beautiful women named Kamma and Onye, who had been best friends since childhood. They did almost everything together, and people often mistook them for sisters. However, after graduating from college, life took them in different directions when they were sent to different states for their national service. They lost contact with each other. Kamma was fortunate to marry a kind and loving man named Amaka, who adored her despite not being wealthy. He had just finished school and was still finding his footing, but Kamma didn't mind. She got a job and supported him with all her heart. In contrast, Onye married Chuka, a wealthy and influential businessman with enterprises across the city. Although she married him for his wealth, her life was far from perfect. Chuka was a serial womanizer and abusive, treating Onye with little respect. While Kamma found happiness in her modest but loving marriage, Onye remained deeply unhappy despite her luxurious lifestyle. One fateful evening, Amaka told Kamma, "You've endured so much with me, and now that I am successful, I want you to stop working and focus on taking care of the kids. I can provide for everything we need now." Not long after, Amaka landed a lucrative government contract that made him incredibly wealthy. He built their dream home, bought cars, and placed Kamma on a generous monthly allowance. Overjoyed, Kamma embraced him and expressed her gratitude for his love and support. She resigned from her job the next day to care for their 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. A month later, while shopping for groceries with her kids, Kamma had a chance encounter with Onye at the supermarket. The two friends were overjoyed to meet after so many years apart. They introduced their children, exchanged contacts, and set a date for Onye to visit Kamma's new home, excited to reconnect and share stories about their lives. Kamma couldn't hide her amazement as she admired Onye's beautiful house. "Your house is so big and stunning. Your husband must be a very wealthy man," she said with a smile. Onye, glowing with pride, replied, "Yes, my husband is a blessing to me. He's compassionate, handsome, and very caring to me and the children. He pampers me like a baby, and I thank God for him every day." Kamma laughed and said, "But no man is perfect. There must be something he's lacking." Curious, Onye asked, "Something like what?" Kamma smirked and boldly asked, "Is he good in bed? Can he perform?" Onye burst out laughing and replied confidently, "He's a horse in the bedroom. He's complete in every way." Just then, Onye's phone rang. It was her husband, Amaka, calling to ask her to buy a beautiful red gown because he wanted to take her out that night. After the call, Onye shared her excitement with Kamma, gushing about how lucky she was to have married such a wonderful man. The more Onye praised Amaka, the more envious Kamma became, secretly longing for a man like him. What Onye didn't know was that Kamma's life wasn't as perfect as she claimed. Her husband had gone bankrupt, and the bank had taken everything, leaving her in poverty. But Kamma never revealed this to Onye. Instead, she lied, pretending that her husband was still very wealthy and successful. That night, when Kamma returned home, her mind was consumed with thoughts of Amaka. He was everything she wanted in a man, and she became determined to destroy her friend's home and take him for herself. On her next visit, Kamma started planting seeds of doubt in Onye's mind. "You should ask Amaka to let you start your own business," she advised slyly. Onye looked puzzled and explained that her husband didn't want her to work because she had supported him when he had nothing. Kamma shook her head and said, "Don't be fooled. Men like to control their wives by keeping them dependent. Or maybe he's cheating on you and doesn't want you to find out." Onye trusted Kamma deeply, and her words began to eat away at her confidence in her marriage. Doubts she'd never had before started creeping into her mind. She began wondering if Emeka's refusal to let her work was because he was hiding something, perhaps another family or a mistress. Kwame pressed on, saying, "If you doubt me, just ask him to open a business for you. His reaction will tell you everything you need to know." Foolishly, Onye believed her friend. When Emeka returned home that evening, she decided to confront him about starting a business, unaware that she was walking straight into Kwame's trap. They were lying on the bed when she softly said, "My love, I want to start a business of my own. Can you help me open a supermarket?" Emma was taken aback, wondering why she would bring up something they had already discussed and decided upon. "Why do you need a supermarket? Are you lacking anything? Or do you want me to increase your allowance?" "I don't mind," he said. She shook her head. "It's not about the money. I just want to stop staying at home all the time." Emma frowned and replied, "But you're a mother, and we have 4 children. I need you to stay home and give them your full attention. Why work when I can provide for everything?" But no matter how he tried to reason with her, she insisted. The conversation ended in an argument, and they went to bed in silence. Emma couldn't understand her sudden change and began to suspect she might be seeing someone else, but he quickly dismissed the thought to avoid breaking his trust in her. The tension lingered as he left for work the next morning. The next day, Onye visited Kwame again, eager to see the progress of her manipulation. Kwame told her everything that had happened the previous night with her husband, including how Emeka refused to open a supermarket for her. Onye smiled inwardly, delighted that her plan was working perfectly. She feigned concern and said, "Do you believe me now? If he's as wonderful as you claim, why won't he support your dream? How much does it even cost to open a business? I told you, he doesn't want you to be independent because he's cheating on you. That's the only explanation." Onye continued, "You don't need his permission to establish yourself. Save up your monthly allowance and start your own business. You're too beautiful to sit at home like a slave." Kwame, blinded by her friend's words, foolishly believed her. She started saving her allowance, and within 3 months, she had enough to start a small business. During this time, Onye's own life was falling apart. Her husband, Chuka, divorced her due to her constant insults and nagging, which had turned their home into a war zone. Desperate and bitter, Onye hid her failed marriage from Kwame and became even more determined to ruin her friend's happiness. When Emeka discovered that Kwame had started a business without his consent, he was deeply hurt and disappointed. He tried to talk her out of it, but Kwame was stubborn and chose to listen to Onye instead of her husband. The business thrived, and Kwame became so consumed with her work that she neglected her family. She stopped picking up her children from school on time, leaving Emeka to rush from work to get them. She no longer cooked meals, relying on takeout for the family, and stopped doing household chores. Kwame also started coming home late at night, claiming that the business required her attention. Emeka often returned home to find the children asleep on the couch, hungry and unkempt. Whenever he tried to be intimate with her, Kwame would push him away, saying she was too tired. Onye continued to visit Kwame's shop, feeding her more toxic advice and fueling the growing rift in her marriage. As the situation worsened, Emeka decided to hire a maid to handle the household chores and care for the children. However, instead of using the extra help to balance her home and work life, Kwame fully distanced herself from her family. She devoted all her time to her business and her friendship with Onye, ignoring her responsibilities as a wife and mother. The marriage began to crumble, and Emeka grew increasingly unhappy with the person Kwame had become. One fateful evening, he returned home after a long day at work, only to find the house in disarray, his children unattended, and his wife nowhere to be found. For the first time, Amaka began questioning whether the woman he loved so deeply was still the same Kwame he had married. The marriage continued to crumble, and one evening, on his way home from work, Amaka saw Onye waving him down by the roadside. Unaware that she was his wife's best friend, he stopped to help. Onye pretended she had been robbed at gunpoint, claiming her car and valuables were stolen. Feeling sorry for her, Amaka offered her a ride. During the drive, they struck up a conversation. Amaka, who had been feeling neglected since Kwame started her business, found Onye to be a great listener. They exchanged contacts, and soon, their conversations became a regular occurrence. Amaka started spending his evenings with Onye, knowing that Kwame wouldn't be home. As he began keeping late nights, the maid took over full responsibility for the children, managing their meals, school routines, and bedtime. Amaka's distance from his home life mirrored Kwame's, and the cracks in their marriage deepened. One evening, Amaka couldn't hold back his frustrations anymore and opened up to Onye during their usual chat. "I'm not happy with my marriage anymore," he confessed. "My wife has completely changed. She doesn't care about me or the kids anymore. I don't know what went wrong." Onye hid her satisfaction behind a sympathetic expression and replied, "Are you sure she's not seeing someone else? My father used to say that when someone stops giving you attention, they're giving it to someone else." Her words planted seeds of doubt in Amaka's heart, but his love and trust for Kwame held strong. "No, my wife would never cheat on me. I trust her completely," he said firmly. Onye, feigning concern, offered, "If you're sure, let me help you find out. Just give me her picture and details. I'll get close to her and uncover the truth." Though skeptical, Amaka eventually sent Onye his wife's photo and contact details. However, as he spent more time with Onye, he found himself drawn to her, appreciating the attention she gave him, attention he felt was missing at home. Onye, determined to destroy Kwame's marriage, devised a sinister plan. She visited Kwame at her shop, excitedly sharing fabricated news about a wealthy client willing to offer a multi-million naira contract. Kwame, thrilled, eagerly asked how to meet the client. Onye lied, saying the client would arrive from abroad and stay at a popular hotel, assuring Kwame she would accompany her to the meeting. A week later, Onye informed Kwame that the client had arrived. Together, they went to the hotel's restaurant to wait for him. While they sat and chatted, Onye secretly drugged Kwame's drink. As the drug took effect, Kwame became disoriented and weak. Onye quickly booked a room and carried Kwame inside, then called a man she had prearranged to help execute her plan. The man arrived, undressed Kwame, and laid next to her, posing intimately for staged photographs. Onye snapped several pictures and sent them to Amaka. When Amaka received the photos, his heart shattered. The man he trusted most had no idea he was falling deeper into Onye's trap. When Amaka received the incriminating photos, his heart shattered. He immediately called Onye, his voice trembling with anger and confusion. "What's going on? Who is that man with my wife?" Onye suppressed a grin and feigned concern. "I told you she's been cheating on you, Amaka. That's her secret lover. They're currently in room 267 at Gideon's hotel. You need to catch them before they leave." Amaka thanked Onye and drove furiously to the hotel. When he reached the room, the door was unlocked, so he barged in. There, he saw Kwame lying unconscious on the bed beside a strange man. The man, startled, shouted, "Who are you, and what do you want?" Amaka, overwhelmed with emotion, left the room in tears, feeling deeply betrayed. He called Onye immediately, crying and pouring out his pain. "I trusted her, and this is what she did to me," he sobbed. Onye comforted him, using the moment to further poison his mind. "She doesn't deserve you, Amaka. Come to my house. We need to talk." Vulnerable and broken, Amaka went to Onye's house, where she manipulated him into believing more lies about Kwame. One thing led to another, and in his despair, Amaka succumbed to Onye's advances, setting off a chain of events that would change their lives forever. The next day, Amaka returned home, angry and resolute. He began packing Kwame's belongings without explanation. Confused and alarmed, Kwame followed him, pleading for an explanation. "Sweetheart, what's going on? Why are you doing this?" she cried. Amaka finally exploded, showing her the pictures Onye had sent. "How could you do this to me? After everything, I trusted you." Kwame was stunned. "It's not what you think. I was set up. I went there with my friend to meet a client, and I don't know how I ended up like that," she pleaded, falling to her knees. But Amaka was too hurt to listen. "Which friend? I've never heard of any best friend of yours in this city," he retorted. Without another word, he sent Kwame and the children away, warning the security guard never to let them back into the house. Devastated, Kwame rented a small apartment with her savings and tried to rebuild her life. However, tragedy struck when her shop was destroyed in a fire, leaving her with nothing. She struggled to make ends meet, eventually pulling her children out of school and sending them to hawk water on the streets to survive. Meanwhile, Onye moved in with Amaka, but their relationship quickly soured. Onye's true colors began to show. She was disrespectful, wasteful, and confrontational. She constantly picked fights with Amaka, turning his once peaceful home into a battleground. One evening, after a long day at work, Amaka came home late, only to be met by Onye's wrath. "Where have you been? Are you cheating on me now?" she screamed, accusing him of infidelity. Amaka, already exhausted, tried to calm her down, but she escalated the argument. In a fit of rage, she grabbed a pestle from the kitchen and struck him on the head, causing him to collapse. The security guard witnessed the incident and rushed Amaka to the hospital. Coincidentally, one of Kwame's children, who had been hawking water, was hit by a car that same day and was taken to the same hospital. As fate would have it, Kwame and Amaka ran into each other in the hospital hallway. Shocked to see one another, their encounter unraveled the truth. At the hospital, Amaka discovered that Onye had been Kwame's best friend all along. Kwame, still heartbroken, explained how Onye had disappeared after their fallout and likely orchestrated the setup to ruin her life. Amaka, filled with guilt and regret, realized how blind he had been to Onye's manipulations. He apologized profusely to Kwame, and she forgave him, understanding that they had both been victims of deceit. Onye, ashamed and exposed, fled the hospital, leaving Amaka and Kwame to reconcile. Together, they returned home and vowed to rebuild their family, learning the hard way never to let outsiders dictate their marriage. The moral of the story: be cautious about sharing personal details with others, no matter how close they seem. Not all friends have your best interests at heart, some are only there to bring you down. Choose your confidants wisely and protect your family from unnecessary interference.